Hello, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Analyst for Digital Transformation and Mobility here at Cognizant, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Now, this is part of my Mobile Expert Interview Series, and I'm thrilled today that we have as our guest Mike Piech. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Now, Mike is the General Manager for Jboss at Red Hat, and they have some really interesting developments that we're going to talk about today. Number one, your recent announced acquisition of Feedhenry. Congratulations, Mike.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're super excited about it. Super excited to really expand, what we can offer in the mobile area within Jboss middleware.
Perfect. But before we get into the details and discussions there, let me ask you a question that I have to ask all my guests is, what makes you a mobile expert?
Well, I personally won't claim to be the biggest mobile expert out there. There are plenty of folks who are far deeper than me. But as kind of steward of the overall Jboss middleware portfolio, and just based on what I hear from my customers and through our partners on a regular basis, it's clear that mobile is a dominant area of focus and development and opportunity within enterprise. It was one of the obvious first acquisitions that I was going to champion and really push for as I joined Red Hat, frankly.
Got it. So talk to us, for those that may not be intimately familiar with Red Hat, give us kind of, and I know you guys do so much, the breadth of your product line is massive, but where did you see the connection between Feedhenry and Red Hat? Where is that?
Sure. So I'll sort of step all the way back and say, a lot of the world knows Red Hat for our Linux offerings, right? I mean, we've been doing Linux for 20 plus years. We've actually been doing middleware for a fairly long time as well, right? So Red Hat acquired Jboss in 2006, and starting with the humble open source Java EE app server. We've expanded that to a product line of over a dozen products now, covering everything from obviously the app server itself, moving up the stack into integration, business rules, business process automation, a development tool suite to wrap that, a management tool to wrap that, and so on. So it's a broad portfolio that your typical enterprise application developer uses some, or in some cases all of in his or her day job building apps for the enterprise. Now, in the last couple of years, as I'm sure your readers and viewers well know, mobile has just taken on an explosive trajectory, and certainly no less in the enterprise than in consumer or other industry sectors. Mm-hmm. And again, based on what our customers are trying to do, what they're asking us for, the kinds of capabilities that are most top of mind for them, being better able to support the mobile app, to support a wide range of features that are specific and unique to the mobile clients, it was clearly the next area that we needed to sort of bolster within the portfolio.
So did you see this as a separate area in a new market, or just an extension of what you're already doing?
Well, both. I know that's a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, but here's the thing, right? Up until adding the Feedhenry capabilities, there were probably numerous mobile-only or mobile-specific applications that wouldn't have necessarily looked at Red Hat, looked at the Jboss portfolio, just because we didn't have a full suite of capability. We've been working on some specific add-ons within at the app server container level with, for example, our Arrow Gear open source project. But to be honest, we weren't a go-to for the mobile developer. Now, from a technical standpoint, a lot of the functionality, a lot of the capabilities that we're talking about in Feedhenry and that type of offering is logically middleware, right? It's in that same kind of category. It's higher levels of abstraction, it's libraries, it's APIs that an application developer will use rather than build something from scratch. And by using something like this, you get standardization, you get maturity of something that's been developed for a while and tested and is in use across a wider number of folks. And it's kind of about developer productivity and application reliability at the end of the day. All those words I would use for any kind of middleware, so it's a logical extension.
Got it. So logical extension, and you must have been hearing a demand or a need within your own customer base for mobile extensions?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting from basic capabilities like push notifications and data synchronization, for offline use, sort of the unique aspects of mobile security. There are numerous areas where folks that are just, again, building everyday enterprise applications they're building all along, increasingly the client that will interact with the back end of that application is a mobile client. So our customer base is practically screaming for those mobile oriented capabilities.
Got it. So when you were having these discussions internally around your conference room, did you guys give any serious consideration to actually building your own?
Yeah, and again, we've actually been building some capabilities. Again, the most sort of prominent, publicly viewable example of which is the AeroGear project. But we realized that there were companies out there that had gone further and faster, and even to catch up with what, let's say, a Feedhenry had already done was just going to take too long, right? I mean, you just by the time you hire up the guys with the right expertise and come up with your own architecture, develop it, bring it to market, it was clearly it was a textbook example of a place where an acquisition made sense.
Got it. So, Mike, what do you think the size of that window is where you need to get in and deliver a solution?
Well, I think we're in the middle of I'll call it a 3-year window. I'll say it started on the order of, I mean, certainly there are folks out there who will say many more years ago. But I think in a year plus ago, about a year ago, we saw a need in the interest curve, and we're on the steep part of that curve now, and there's a couple more years, right, where it could be 2, could be 3, won't split hairs here. But I think during this window it's super exciting, and then at some point a number of basic capabilities will just be kind of agreed upon and become standard and become sort of baked into a lot of different offerings out there. So we're in the middle, I think, of a 3-ish year window where the exciting stuff is happening.
All right. So I have a mobile solutions directory that's linked off my blog, mobileenterprisestrategies.com, and there's over 50 mobile vendors there. So you had a wide selection that you could have chose from, and you chose Feedhenry. What did you see in Feedhenry that was so appealing to you?
Yeah, you're spot on. We really did. We joked about how long the tail was of the possible companies to look at. We liked a number of things about Feedhenry. I mean, there are some, non-technical aspects like, size of company, maturity of company, sort of readiness to, and sort of, predilection to be acquired, and all those kinds of things. Any one of which might take it off the table. Like all those sort of non-technical aspects were good, right? Check, check, check.
Mm-hmm.
From a technical standpoint, we did some pretty serious due diligence on a number of technologies. We really liked the Feedhenry architecture. We liked the technical vision, where they were going, the user experience, in particular the ability to sort of develop both the server side, the back end, at the same time as the client side. So really being, enabling the developer to kind of see, back end and front end in conjunction. We liked the platform as a service-ish way of offering the capabilities, right? So that fits in nicely with our XPath strategy, our OpenShift technology. So in short order here, and on the order of months, we're going to move the Feedhenry capabilities onto the OpenShift underlying platform as a service. So that sort of technical synergy was very important there. And an area that might at first seem different and almost maybe a surprise to some of our traditional customers is that Feedhenry is Node.js. And the J in Jboss was originally stood for Java, right? And we've very much been a Java-oriented enterprise middleware play. But we see a lot of interest, a lot of uptake in Node.js. We see it as probably the leading emerging next generation technology that enterprise customers are adopting. And not that it's going to displace Java or completely take it over, but we see it as very complementary. And the ways in which the Node.js technology and architecture are very appropriate for a mobile solution complement the other things we do. So that we saw the Node.js aspect is very complementary and broadening, extending our reach there. We see the opportunity to, in a way, be a bridge between the traditional enterprise Java development world of the enterprise and this emerging Node.js sort of approach that many enterprise shops are adopting. So,
wow.
Sorry for that, but that's just some of the thoughts.
Oh, that's great. That's what we all need to be understanding. So talk to us about what changes might your Feedhenry customers expect and the market to expect to see through this acquisition.
Yeah, well, we're one aspect I didn't mention in my previous answer, but which is also very important, is a synergy of cultures, right? So we, one thing that was very important in this, the whole, due diligence and acquisition process was just how well the Red Hat engineering team and the Feedhenry engineering team just clicked, right? And then that's not just hang out and have a beer. They're in Ireland, so they're great beer drinkers. So that was an easy bonding dimension there.
I was wondering if that's what you meant by culture. The whole pint culture.
Yeah, the guys are fantastic. But there's also a synergy of technical vision. So many of the things that Feedhenry was already thinking about and had on their roadmap, I mean, we very much want to continue and support that development. Part of what we think is exciting for both of our customer bases is that bringing the Feedhenry technology through Red Hat's channels, Red Hat's partners, Red Hat's kind of selling machinery, if you will. Just gives it a distribution channel and the opportunity to go broader, faster. From a technology standpoint, we think that bringing Feedhenry, onto the OpenShift platform, incorporating it into our overall suite of what we call Jboss XPath services for OpenShift, will kind of embed the Feedhenry mobile capabilities within that wider suite of enterprise development. So it will give Feedhenry a leg up against many of the other mobile capabilities in that long tail of other companies out there, right? So being part of that a bigger offering rather than a point solution is often what the big enterprise customers are looking for. So we see that as a big opportunity.
Got it. Well, it was a surprise to me because Red Hat was not really in my target zone for what I thought was potentially be acquisition, somebody that would initiate an acquisition. But your description here makes it seem perfectly natural.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're the a number of the key Feedhenry folks who are based here in the Westford, Massachusetts area sit down the hall from me, and we're, they I think on the second day they were here, they already felt as if they had been at Red Hat for months, right? I mean, natural is exactly the right word.
Awesome. So what kind of feedback have you been getting from industry analysts on the acquisition?
Very positive. When I've had numerous conversations that, are, let's say, variants of what we've been talking about here with different analysts, and after talking through it a little bit, everybody pretty much nods and says, "All right, it makes a lot of sense. Sounds like you guys made a great choice." The ones who were already familiar with Feedhenry had very positive things to say about them. So, once I explain the strategy and the complementarity bit, folks are nodding and saying, "All right, go knock it out of the park."
So, Mike, here's another question. Some of the other earlier acquisitions within the enterprise mobility space have kind of absorbed vendors into their ecosystem, but then it was hard to sell outside of that ecosystem. I think, for example, Sybase's acquisition by SAP. Once it became SAP Mobile Platform, if you weren't an SAP user, it wasn't necessarily on your radar to look at that vendor. Do you see that as a challenge, or do you see handling Feedhenry as kind of an independent venture?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like any vendor with a broad portfolio, right? We're constantly telling the story of the benefits of using more of the different pieces together. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're careful to keep each of the various pieces, and I mean even the whole overall Red Hat portfolio, whether you're talking about operating system, OpenStack, OpenShift, platform as a service. I can tell you the great reasons why, if you buy all of those things together and run your whole data center on them and build your apps with them, what kinds of synergy you get. But at the same time, you can buy, there are plenty of people who have Jboss, Enterprise Application Platform, the app server, and nothing else from Red Hat, and they do great, and they're happy, and they'll continue to be loyal Jboss EAP customers. Similarly with Feedhenry, I think there's a very good set of capabilities for pure mobile apps, and I think there's a wide range of customers who might be using, let's say, competitors' technologies at other layers of the stack, but who love Feedhenry, will adopt it, will make that their mobile platform of choice, and we're happy to support that and to not put any not impede that in any way, right? We're not gonna wall off, tie the Feedhenry stuff so tightly into our, let's say OpenShift or into other parts of Jboss middleware that would prevent just use of Feedhenry standalone. So I think it'll be a very different scenario from SAP, for example.
Got it. Now, in your initial press release on the acquisition of Feedhenry, you talked about aligning. You said aligned with Red Hat's open hybrid cloud strategy. Basically, is Feedhenry. So Feedhenry is aligned with the open hybrid cloud strategy. So for somebody in an audience that might be unfamiliar with Red Hat's terminology, what does that mean to us?
Yeah, sure thing. So the open hybrid cloud sort of technical vision overall that Red Hat kind of frames all of our storytelling in, if you will. The idea of open hybrid cloud, so open, it's all open source technology. Hybrid, meaning that your applications and your infrastructure can support what we refer to as 4 footprints, right? Physical, virtual, private cloud, public cloud. And so with Feedhenry, an example of how Feedhenry fits right into that is right off the bat, you can install it on-premise and basically embed it within a private cloud type of environment or setup. Or you can use feedhenry.com or ultimately on OpenShift.com. You can take advantage of the capabilities in a public cloud setting. if you're running it, in that sort of in your own data center, right, you can choose how cloudy or not cloudy to have it, right? You can have the resources be all physical machines. You're likely going to run them on virtualized machines. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. But the point being, you can use the technologies in that hybrid cloud environment. As to the open piece, like every acquisition we do, we're going to open source all of the software there. So we've already started that process. It takes a few months. You don't just sort of take a proprietary code base and throw it over the wall, stick it on GitHub, and wash your hands away you go. We've got to sort of prepare it for open source, but we're doing that now. And then the applications that you build using the Feedhenry platform themselves support this notion of open hybrid cloud. They pull in components or integrate with different services that may be in public clouds, on-prem, off-prem, etc. So just a few examples of how it fits into that overall technical vision.
Got it. So Mike, here's a question. I just finished a research project called Real-Time Mobile Infrastructure, and in that research project I surveyed 80 professionals in the enterprise mobility space, mostly consultants and architects, and they identified in those surveys that one of the biggest inhibitors to successful implementations of enterprise mobility was in fact the speed or lack thereof in legacy environments. They just couldn't get responses that were satisfactory to a mobile user. How do you see you guys addressing those kinds of concerns?
So just to clarify, so you're talking about the runtime performance of the application or the speed and productivity with which the application is built?
No, the production part of the app. Once it's done, the users are not getting they're having a difficult time getting the speed of response they need from a mobile app through the back-end system and through queries and data inputs and bidirectional data movement.
Right. So I'll give you kind of broad categories of enablement that the Feedhenry and Feedhenry combined with Jboss middleware brings to the table to address that. One is that getting optimal responsiveness is having the right balance of what's on the client and what's on the server, right? So obviously, the thinner the client side and the more stuff that's on the back end, the more stuff has to come over the wire, and the more the user is likely to experience latency. And so by enabling the application developer to develop the client side and the server side in conjunction, right, in tandem, we really enable the developer to optimize that experience, right, to get as much stuff and more importantly, the right stuff on the client side.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece of that is any mobile app, no matter how well you do what I just described, there's obviously a back-end component. There's inevitably data that needs to be various sources on the server side, from various sources in the cloud, and so on. And the rest of the Jboss middleware portfolio adds to the Feedhenry backend many of the technologies that speed up that type of integration and that latency. So just to throw one example out there, we have our Jboss Data Grid. So that's an in-memory data grid product, right? That allows the server side of an application, rather than having to go to disk or go to a database all the time, to basically store massive amounts of the data needed for an application in memory. So that dramatically increases the response, or improves the response time. For back ends of apps in general, but you can envision a great synergy with mobile in particular. So there's two examples for you.
What's interesting is that I asked one of the follow-up questions on my survey was what you recommend companies look at to optimize their legacy IT environments, and in-memory was one of the top 5 choices there as well. That's one of the suggestions by the professionals. So you're in good company there, Mike.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's in-memory is an important trend overall, and we're very much pushing and driving in that area.
So the last question, Mike, here before I let you go. So how strategic is mobility to Red Hat? How important is it? Is this just a little side hobby, or is this more important than that?
No, this is super important. You'll see mobility featuring prominently in our strategy and what we talk about, and in you know, how we, and then not even just in middleware, but overall. I think, you know, if you watch our messaging over the coming months, it'll be clear that this is not just a little, you know, a small tuck under. This is important.
That's very good. Mike, I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, insight, and experiences with all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate the opportunity to join you here today.